Hi, virtual students. We are here on Unit 2, Part 3, and we're going to get a little bit more in depth about this demand, both the demand and the supply graphs. Here's your first daily blog. Go ahead and get that filled out. Give yourself an answer. We're talking about the slope of the line. So obviously, when we talk about the slope, it could be like this. If it's real flat, it could go up. It could be vertical like that. And we'll talk about what else we can prove with these supply and demand curves. Okay, so if you can figure out this graph here, it'll make some sense as we kind of move forward. I'll explain what we're seeing with a visual for you guys. Let's define what we're talking about here though today, and we're talking about what's referred to as price elasticity of demand, and that has to do with in layman's terms, like if the price of something changes, do I decide to buy it or not to buy it, or if something gets really expensive, do I still have to buy it? Okay, so um, again, we're looking at consumers' responsiveness to an increase or decrease in the price of a product. We're going to show you two different ways we can draw this graph. And again, like I said, prove some common sense because a necessity is going to make us behave one way. Something that has a lot of substitutes is going to allow us to behave in a different way. Okay, so elastic demand is something that is that's going to be when the price changes, we change our mind. Okay, so a rise or fall in the price, a change in the price greatly affects the amount that we buy. Okay, so these are things that have our luxury items we don't necessarily need. And they also might have a whole lot of substitutes. And so, like the elasticity of demand for McDonald's is probably very elastic. Like when McDonald's puts stuff on sale, we're like, okay, now we're going to go there. Or when a competitor puts stuff on sale, like we won't go to McDonald's, right? And so we're very sensitive to those price changes. Inelastic demand is the opposite. Okay, that means when the price changes, even though it might change a lot, we can't really change, what we are going to buy or the amount that we're going to buy. And the best example of that we would be familiar with is gasoline. And again, even if you think about like, oh, I love when gasoline's really cheap. It doesn't make me as mad to have to buy it. Well, even when it's really cheap, we can't really buy more of it. We could probably jump through some hoops and try to store it if we really wanted to. But again, our gas tanks are, finite, right? We can't necessarily buy as much as we would like to, even though it might be really cheap. Okay, so those are going to be things that are necessities. Like I said, the best example is gasoline. You could throw electricity in there. You could probably throw even like internet service in there. Those types of things that we know that we have to have. So here's how we're going to be able to draw these. So you can see I've got two graphs here. I got my elastic and my inelastic graph. Okay, get myself out of the way there. And our elastic graph is going to be very flat. Okay, it's going to be very flat. And I'm going to kind of describe what that means. So like we said, we talked about like McDonald's, right? And let's just say the price at McDonald's was $2 for a sandwich here and $3 for a sandwich here. Well, at $2, we're going to be expected to buy a whole lot more of something. Let's just call it quantity 100. I don't know. We'll talk about an entire economy. Where at $3 though, we only buy, let's say, like 50. Okay, where we have a big change in how much we buy based on the price of that good, right? I'm going to change that number 52 like a 20. Okay, so we're very sensitive to that price change. Now, on the flip side, when we talk about an inelastic curve, it's going to be very vertical. Okay, and so this is when, all right, let's just say I have to buy 12 gallons of gas a week, right? And so when the price is really low, let's call it $2 a gallon, right? I have to buy this quantity here of 12 gallons, okay? Even when the price goes way up, let's say to $4 a gallon, right? I still have to get to work. It's still a necessity for me. So I still have to, but maybe I can change a little bit. Like maybe I can, carpool one day, ride my bike one day, but I still have to buy about, 11 or 12 gallons of gas when it's inelastic. Now, the way that I remember is my inelastic graph goes up and down. Looks like the letter I, right? That's how I remember doing these without having to memorize exactly what each means. So then I can try to draw them on a graph and show myself what it's telling me. Hey, so we kind of mentioned this already. What affects the demand elasticity? Availability, price of substitutes. Again, do I have other options? How much we spend on a particular product of our budget. Like, if you talk about like a cell phone bill, well, I got to pay my cell phone bill. For me, it's about $120 for my family plan. I'll still buy that cell phone bill even if it gets to be like 125. I won't notice it very much, right? Because it's not going up that big of a percentage. All right. Whereas if I spend you know $5 on a cheeseburger and the price goes up to $10, well, again, it went up by $5. It's not very much, but I don't necessarily need to have that. All right, and we can also take into account the time I have to change to adjust in those types of things. So if I, obviously if gas prices change, like I have to put gas in my car today, maybe I can change it on the road, buy an electric car, buy a bike, change my lifestyle, move closer to my work, right? Whatever those things, those are what it means by time I have to adjust to those changes. Now, supply operates kind of in the same principle. Um, and again, supply is a little bit different because we don't necessarily think this way very often. But the rules we just gave you with demand are going to be the same. Elastic supply means I can change whether or not I want to produce it. Inelastic supply means I'm pretty much stuck with producing what I have, right, based on the market price. Okay, so some things that affect the elasticity of supply, and I'll draw them on here for you too. Here, give me one quick second just to show you the concept. So elastic, and the only thing that we're going to change is that our slope is going to flip. So right, instead of being like this, it's going to go, the opposite way, right? So, elastic supply is going to do this. Okay. So again, no matter what the market price is, like the same amount of people are going to produce it. Or I'm sorry, if the price changes very little, right, we're going to get more people supplying it. Gold acts in this way, right? The price of gold is determined in the international market. Well, if the price changes just a little bit, I'm going to be more willing to supply a whole lot more of it based on that price. Okay. On my inelastic supply, again, inelastic is going to make it look like an I, right? Okay, so inelastic vertical here. On my inelastic supply, no matter what the price is, I am only able to supply a certain amount. Think like agriculture, right? So like no matter what, I have a set amount of land, like I'm only gonna be able to supply a certain amount of agriculture, right? And especially with a short period of time of how I would need to adjust. Um, like maybe cattle get super expensive and I'm like, oh, I want to produce cattle. Well, that takes time to do. I can't really change how I operate in those types of situations. All right. Now, the availability of the inputs, land, labor, capital, right? Natural resources, workers. Can I get money and tools put together to get a business put together? That's going to affect that supply elasticity. Can I move those inputs? Can I change them to do certain things? Like obviously farmland is only going to do farmland, right? And once I plant corn, I can't take the corn seeds out of the ground and decide to plant soybeans, right? That would be mobility of inputs. And then, like with the case of gold, the reason people like to have that is I can store a lot of it in a very small area, right? Whereas think about like if I grow bananas, if I try to store bananas for a long period of time, they're going to go bad. And so spoiling and things going bad. This is the reason why grocery stores have to lower their prices sometimes and put things on sale because they're not able to sell everything as fast as possible. Hey, that's it. Pretty simple concept. There'll be a supplementary video on here for you too if you want to see a cheesy video, but that'll be linked. And other than that, email with me with questions and we'll get you straightened out.